let's take a look at the anatomy of the Magic Maker's invisible deck. When you first open the box, you're going to notice that the jokers and the instruction cards are still in here. And there's a reason for that. Don't throw them away. The bicycle tuck case is designed to hold 56 cards. Putting any less than that in the deck, like some manufacturers do, will cause the cards to warp and bend because there's too much room in the box. Magic Makers thought about this and includes these 4 cards to help fill out your deck so you don't have to worry about that warping. It also, if the cards shift around too much in the box, it could have an ill effect on the roughing. Now the roughing, you'll notice that the cards, the backs of the cards have a special coating on them. And this coating allows the cards to stick together. If you apply pressure and try and separate them, they don't want to separate. However, if you use a very light pressure, the cards will separate. This is the essence of the invisible deck. Now all the cards are paired together, back to back, with the roughing on one side and the bicycle air finish on the other side. That's the rough and smooth principle. So if you were spreading through these cards and applying some pressure with your fingers, nothing will separate. However, if you spread very lightly, you can get cards to actually separate. Now that you know what the rough and smooth principle is, let's get into how the deck is set up. You'll notice that all the spades are backed with the hearts, and all the diamonds are paired up with the clubs. Now, each card in the deck has a value, 1 through 13. The ace being 1, the king being 13. These sets are aligned so that each one of these packs of cards, each one of these sets, equals 14 when you add the two sides together. An ace is 1, and a king is 13. You have 14. A 7, obviously, on the back is another 7. Again, 14. So now, what you need to remember is 14 is the magic number. And remember that clubs are on the back of diamonds and hearts are on the back of spades. That's it. And a very easy way to remember this, the heart pip looks a lot like the spade, only red. So that's an easy way to remember it. Now when the cards are placed inside the box, they're placed so that the spade cards are on the spade side of the box. Another great idea from Magic Makers. So now there's very little memorization that has to be done. You're remembering 14, spades and hearts, clubs and diamonds, and that's it. Now in actual performance, you would have somebody name a card. We'll say the Queen of Hearts. Now you know that hearts and clubs both face one direction. In fact, they face this direction. So you want to open the box with the spades face up. You don't want to reveal the hearts. You would take the cards out. You would spread through, and you think, Queen of Hearts. What would the pairing card with Queen of Hearts be? Well, hearts, clubs. Queen, 2. Exactly, because a queen is 12 and a 2 is 2, equaling 14. You would spread through with some pressure on the deck, squeezing a bit, until you came to the 2. Just keeping pressure on the cards. Now in this case, the 2 is right near the top. Normally it would be somewhere in the center. So you would spread. When you saw the 2, you would use light pressure. Your fingers on the bottom, your thumb on the top, and you would separate those two cards. So I'm just using a little light pressure to separate those two cards. So you would do this as you're spreading through the deck. Now you apply more pressure to show that all the rest of the cards are face up. This being the only face down card in the deck. You would remove it. Don't square up the deck yet because you need to put this back. Reveal the card, and you're done. Then put this right back where it came from, square up, and you're ready to go. That's the basic working of the deck. Now normally you'd have your deck shuffled up so they weren't in new deck order. That way your customer won't see that spades and diamonds are on one side. If you have them mixed up, they won't notice the other two suits are missing. Now I said shuffled up, and let me show you how to mix them properly. when you mix up these cards, you don't want to separate the pairs. So what I do is I'll push off some black cards, push off some red cards, some black cards, some red cards, maybe cut the deck again, push some out of the center and sort of push them into the middle. As long as you apply pressure, you'll shuffle up the cards, but you won't actually separate the pairs. After doing this for a few minutes, you should have the system pretty well broken up. So you've got a nice mix of reds and blacks, and there's no sign of the original 8, 9, 10 jack order that the deck came in. So a little bit of mixing. There we go. After just that little bit of mixing, when I spread through the cards now, it looks like you have a nice random selection of cards. And seeing this pretty quickly, your spectator's not going to notice that you're missing about 26 cards from this side of the deck. Even further than that, they won't even notice that the suit they're thinking of isn't even on this side of the deck. Now, I've done this trick probably right around 1,000 times, and never once has anybody ever noticed that their suit was missing. They're so busy looking for their card, and by the time they would have a chance to realize it, I've already separated the pair where their card is. So now they're on to thinking something else, that there's one face-down card in the deck. So don't worry. It's psychological. It's great. It'll fly right past everybody. Let me give you a couple little tips on separating the cards. Now, sometimes if their card is close to the top, it may be a little hard to get your fingers around the deck to separate it. So in this case, you'll have to use thumb of the one hand and the fingers of the other hand to separate those cards. Now, you may notice sometimes that the cards are very hard to separate. Depends on the humidity a lot. In that case, you may have to stop and actually separate the two cards. This is fine. It doesn't take away from the handling at all. You're still revealing very cleanly one face-down card in the entire deck. So you're going to need to play with it a little bit and find the method that works best for you. One final tip. If the card they're looking for happens to be second card from the top, or maybe the second or third card from the bottom, that's not an ideal place to reveal it. What I would do, as you're spreading through, you see where their card is, say underneath the Queen of Hearts. And if the Queen of Hearts was, let's say, down near the bottom, you'd spread through looking for the Queen of Hearts. You'd see it's on the bottom. I would cut the deck and then continue spreading through. Now the Queen of Hearts is a little bit better positioned to make a little bit more of an impression. If the card's too close to the ends, some spectators will think you could have used some sleight of hand to flip the card around. And we don't want anything to get in the way of the effect. So there's a few little tips to help you out. Here we are behind the scenes, and now I'll teach you how to do the standard presentation. You start with your invisible deck in a convenient pocket. If I'm sitting down, I like to just keep it on my lap. You go through the motions of handing out the invisible deck, have them shuffle it. You can get some comedy out of it by telling them to take it out of the box. Oops, you dropped a card. Play it up as much as you feel comfortable with. Have them pick out a card, look at it, then reverse it and put it back in the deck. Now, it's important that you have them shuffle the deck afterwards. That way, if in their mind the card was near the end when they put it back, or in the middle when they put it back, and then later when you spread out the invisible deck and it's in a different position, it'll make sense. It's a small point, but it's one of those little fine points that'll help really make this a great routine. So, while they're shuffling the deck, my left hand just drops down and grabs the deck of cards. I just kind of hold it in my hand. Nothing fancy, just holding onto it. I take back the invisible deck, and I say, great. But you know, it's kind of hard to see, so let's make it visible. I just bring the hands together. It's a nothing move, and every now and then you'll actually get a reaction out of that. So if you do, fantastic. If you don't, that's fine. They're still about to see a killer trick. Now I say, you're thinking of a card, and I say thinking of a card. I don't say you chose a card. I say you're thinking of a card. And that, again, makes it a little more powerful at the end. You're thinking of a card, one card. What is that card? And as soon as they tell you, we'll say 7 of hearts. Well, now I know how to open up my deck. Remember, spades are on this side. That's what the big spade is for. Hearts and clubs are on this side. So I'm going to turn the deck this way because I don't want the heart to show. So 7 of hearts. Open the box. Take it out. And start spreading through. Now, here's the 7 of spades. We know the 7 of hearts is directly below it. So as you spread through, when you see that card coming, I just grab it with my fingers underneath the deck, my thumb on top, and I lightly spread it, and then, oh, whoops, pretend like I went too far, and then come back to it, as if I didn't quite see the card there. Take it out. It's a good idea to cut the deck here. Take this card, and boom, there's your big finish. Now, since you cut the deck, this card goes right back on the bottom, and you're reset. Quick little point, when you're spreading through, make sure you keep the cards low. You don't want to do this and accidentally expose that there are faces on the other side. So keep the cards nice and low, nice and tight, and you'll be fine. And that's it. That's the original presentation for the invisible deck.